So the battle between Microsoft and Sony over this Activision Blizzard deal just continues to rage on. And most recently, we had some documents that were published in the UK with the CMA, who is taking a pretty serious look into this acquisition and just the overall effects it would have on the market when it comes to a competitive standpoint. And today I wanted to take a look at one part of this and then also the overall landscape here, especially with Sony, and the biggest reason why they're fighting tooth and nail to stop this acquisition. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave Plus channel, make sure you subscribe down below. Let's head over here. This is posted up over on the service.gov.uk website. This is like a 70-page document from the CMA detailing all aspects of this acquisition, and there is some feedback from, say, Sony around what they are concerned about, we'll say, with this whole thing. But because the CMA is able to request documents and look over everything, they have quite a bit of information from Activision Blizzard when it comes to the effects that Call of Duty have had on, say, the PlayStation brand, which we know Sony, about 6 years ago, it was 2015, it was Black Ops 3. Sony aligned its PlayStation brand with the Call of Duty franchise, and they've been leveraging that ever since, and it's worked really well. In fact, we can see in the documents here, they say one Activision Blizzard internal document shows that they redacted quite a bit of stuff. Any of the parties can basically request redaction if it's hard internal numbers, for example, or just some maybe some company-wide secrets or things they don't want out there necessarily. But it does show that another Activision Blizzard internal document shows that Activision's content played a pivotal role in the success of PlayStation and would continue to do so. The document explains that a 6-year COD partnership between Sony and Activision helped to increase the PlayStation 4's console share from redacted, and Activision Blizzard's content drove around redacted PlayStation Plus engagement since the launch of the PlayStation 4, concluding that Activision Blizzard can have a large impact on Sony's gaming business in the next generation, which that seems to be one of the biggest things that I would say PlayStation and Jim Ryan are concerned about, since we heard that Phil Spencer offered essentially up until the end of this generation, 2027, to where COD would release on PlayStation alongside of Xbox in parity. So there wouldn't be any differences in terms of content or anything there. But if we take a look at, I guess, some of the things that Sony brought up, and it's being listed as basically demands that they have. This is over on Forbes from Paul Tassi, who pointed this out. From Sony, Microsoft will be able to give the Xbox version of Call of Duty extra content, which the thing with this is that's essentially what Sony is doing now, where they are doing timed exclusive content, or some just exclusive, for Call of Duty, and then they put the only on PlayStation logo on the box and these different things for maybe extra missions or maps or that kind of stuff, right? Say Microsoft could give the Xbox version of Call of Duty better performance somehow on Xbox hardware. I mean, sure, they could. They could have the PS5 drop frames here and there mysteriously, and the Xbox version is just a rock solid 60, or who knows, maybe they push the Xbox version up to 120 and then they leave the PS5 version at 60. I'm sure there are things that could happen accidentally in development to make sure the Xbox version plays better. And they say Microsoft could offer a range of attractive incentives about Call of Duty through Xbox Game Pass, whether that's bonus features or modes, or presumably the idea they'd offer the game itself through Game Pass, which they obviously plan to. I think that is a serious concern for Sony right now, because if Call of Duty is part of Game Pass and it just goes into that, then, I mean, there's probably going to be a lot of people that look around and go, oh, why don't I just get Game Pass and move over to Xbox? In fact, that's something that Sony has pointed out, saying, well, if it's releases on both platforms in parity, but Microsoft has the marketing and the Game Pass submission, so it just goes right in there and you just download it, that would be enough to get people to move from PlayStation to Xbox. Sony genuinely believes that, which really comes back to one of the biggest things that Sony is concerned about here with Call of Duty. It's really allowed them to basically take the market, like, completely. And it's something that we can see happen over the course of the past 6 years. If you remember with the PlayStation 4, when it first came out, there was some backlash because PlayStation Plus was required to play online. The PS3, it wasn't. It was just kind of an additional like benefits and games that you would get each month. You get that now, but at the time with the PS3, you could still play online without having to pay a monthly or yearly fee for PlayStation Plus. But with the PS4, that went away and it was required. So what Sony had to do, and I mean, it makes sense, they had to look around for ways to get people involved with PlayStation Plus, which means they had to find a way to advertise and bring engagement for a multiplayer game, multiplayer series. Microsoft had great success with Call of Duty on the Xbox 360, and if you remember, they had shown off a Call of Duty game during the Xbox One presentation. I remember they like zoomed in on the dog, and they're like, look how great the character models look, and all these different things. But with Black Ops 3, Sony got the marketing and aligned it with their brand, which, if we take a look at the PlayStation Plus subscriber numbers, we can go all the way back to, here's October 2014. It wasn't until the following year, and essentially midway through, that we started to get news that Call of Duty was going to be this PlayStation-aligned thing, as they were going to work to have exclusive maps, modes, different things there, and obviously the PlayStation logo. And you can see the jump from January 15, 2015 to March 2016. There's a gap here, yes, but right in there is when Black Ops 3 came out, and the rest is history. You can see a massive push for PlayStation Plus subscribers, which has kind of leveled off. Now, I will say some of this just has to do with the PlayStation 4 doing well overall. However, just based on some of the documents that were published by the CMA going back and forth with Sony, Activision, and Microsoft, seems like a lot of credit has been given to Call of Duty, which makes sense. It's the best-selling game like every single year for the most part, especially in the US, where Sony is working to focus more and more. So yeah, you align that with your brand, and a lot of people who maybe buy 1 or 2 games every year, like Call of Duty, Madden, or FIFA, they're probably going to sign up for a PlayStation Plus subscription and buy your system. And if you remember, we're hearing more and more about how the focus currently is on engagement and the subscription numbers. Sony has made a push, even though their premium PlayStation Plus service is kind of lacking right now. Their extra tier is very good, with a lot of games going in there, and then their essential tier allows you to play online. But if Call of Duty becomes something that's more marketed by Microsoft and becomes synonymous with the Xbox logo and all of this, that probably will work to swing some of the momentum back to Microsoft with their Xbox and Game Pass, even if they kept putting it on PlayStation. And that is essentially the biggest thing that Sony is concerned about, is that they will actually lose PlayStation Plus subscribers, because right now everything is about engagement and keeping people within your ecosystem. Also, something else to consider here with some Microsoft games like Minecraft, you actually sign into a Microsoft account in order to play online with people who are on non-PlayStation devices, Android, iOS, Switch, Xbox, and so on there. So there's also a possibility that Microsoft could be bolstering their own numbers by having you use a Microsoft account for crossplay in Call of Duty going forward, which I'm sure Sony wouldn't be very excited to have that flipped on them either. So yes, while it all boils down to money, go figure, these are corporations fighting back and forth, I think there is long-term concern around this, because Sony did spend the last 6 years or so working with Activision and Call of Duty to help bolster their overall subscription numbers and engagement numbers in their PlayStation ecosystem. And yeah, that could be turned right around on them. And I think that's the biggest issue here, especially with the idea of the next generation, which is brought up in those CMA documents. When the PlayStation 7 and whatever Microsoft calls their next Xbox is ready to go, there's a chance that Call of Duty isn't even on PlayStation then. It's very possible. I mean, things change rapidly in the gaming world, so to think that 5 or 6 years from now will look exactly the same as it does currently, it's hard to believe that. So interesting stuff here, though, from Sony and Microsoft with the CMA, a very large document. Check it out if you're interested, because there is quite a bit of information in there. But that one caught my eye, and kind of lining it up with the PlayStation Plus subscriber numbers kind of makes sense why Sony would be fighting so hard to keep Call of Duty alongside of their brand going forward, but I'm not really sure how they can, since I believe this deal will inevitably go through. And even if Microsoft goes, you know what, Call of Duty will be there with PlayStation for as long as possible, as long as the PlayStation brand will be around, Call of Duty will be there. It just might have an Xbox logo next to it. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.